We're starting a new series this morning, John. I thought we'd call it Genuine Voices. We seem to be inundated, particularly on social media, with disingenuous voices, or fake news as it's commonly called these days. How can we trust what we watch or what we hear, what we take in? And I thought we would explore that this morning, if that's all right with you. I thought we'd start with a quiz, which is, I know how much you liked to do a quiz with me. All of the following are true headlines in British newspapers. So I'm not asking you if I've made them up. They have all appeared in print. What I would like you to have a go at is whether it's fake or true. Not the headline, but the content, okay? Fake or true. Freddie Starr ate my hamster.
Well, it sounds a bit odd, doesn't it?
But it's a true headline from the Sun newspaper in 1986. And I have skin in this game because my father was a teacher and he taught Freddie Starr. And my dad wasn't surprised at all to read Freddie Starr ate my hamster.
Well, I start off by not knowing who Freddie Starr is. I've never heard of him.
He's a comedian.
Ah, well, maybe it's true then.
No, it's false. It's fake. It was just a journalist making it up. The Sunday Sport, 1990. Space aliens ate my sheep.
Also, sounds a bit odd. Do you know, I'm a bit shy of using absolute yes or no, one thing or the others. And I think in relation to the subject matter that you just explained, I better be very careful what I say. And instead of saying fake or true, because you see this word true needs a bit of careful treatment.
Fake, made up. Sunday Sport again, 1988. Elvis found on the moon.
On the moon? Well, again, questionable, isn't it?
Fake. 2016, on the side of a bus, we send £350 million a week to the EU.
Well, that might be true.
It might be, but it is at best economical with the truth, because we get most of it back. April 2020, President Trump, maybe we could inject disinfectant. Fake or true?
I think I've heard that one before. To be taken with a pinch of salt.
Indeed, a very large, a whole salt cellar of salt, that one. Of course. Underneath it is a very serious question. It's got two parts, John, which I'd like you to just riff on off the cuff. You've already touched on what is true, and then the sort of follow-up question is, how do we know it's true? Or a different way of putting that is, what do we believe?
Well, one thing for sure, our perceptions, by extension, perhaps we could say our understanding of reality or what is true, varies throughout our lives. The way a child would perceive is not the same as a mature person, is it? And what about how an animal, how a worm might perceive, or a bird, or any creature? Think how your perception of a person might change when your first impression, or when you get to know them better. Your perception of almost everything changes, doesn't it? My word, some people spend their whole lives searching for the truth, don't they? Things satisfy for a while, and then you're not so sure. Our perception is very much of an expanding process. At least I find that. How wide does it go? I mean, normal human everyday perception is pretty narrow, really. It's about a shopping list of the day's activities, what to do, what's important.
Would you say your life has in some way been a lifelong pursuit of truth?
Yes, I suppose you could say that. What I valued most is all these big words like truth, love, peace, meaning. They all rather run into each other, don't they? Certainly our understanding of what we mean by these things will change very much as we live.
Can I make the distinction, which I've just thought of? Is there an inner truth and an outer truth? By that I mean, quite simply, outer truth is what we perceive, yes, what we are told, what we learn, what we pick up from others, from the media, from our education, of course. I'll call that outer truth or received truth. But then there's a sort of inner truth, what resonates, the Geiger counter of the spirit.
Well, see, that's again very interesting, because it's several, that illustrates several aspects of how complicated it gets. Perceive truth. Well, if we perceive truth, we normally think of these mortal eyes. Can we ever see? Well, what is truth anyway? What are we talking about?
As Pontius Pilate said to Jesus.
The subject, the more I sort of think about it, the greater the theme of this talk gets. I think it's a fairly safe thing to say that in this exploration of spirit, or truth, or what is God, for example, it's fairly safe to say that we proceed not so much by finding what it is, but by eliminating what it isn't. Although we sit here and try to work it out in our minds, there's another process going on which is even more certain, sure, is that we grow up naturally. So a child naturally grows out of childish understanding into a more mature outlook. So I'd rather approach this subject by, we'll explore it together, see how we go. It's fairly obvious that we live in a world of change. Everything changes, isn't it? Even a solid structure like this church, we know, is not permanent. Nothing in human experience is permanent, is it? Is there anything we can say, or do, or be that is not going to be different tomorrow? What we said and did and thought yesterday, we can't even remember it half the time, can we? It's gone. This sense of the insubstantiality of the world, it really well, it becomes ever more evident, doesn't it? Especially as one gets older. What is real? People commonly talk about, let's get back to reality, get back to the real world. But is the real world as real as we think? What is real to, just thinking of the current sort of political way, social debates that are going on, what is real to one person is not to another, is it? So, certainly people from different parts of the world, different races, civilizations, look at the world extraordinarily in different ways.
My best friend of many years, we have very recently, with the changing geopolitical situation, come to radically different positions of what is truth. And I personally am finding it extremely upsetting, challenging, depressing almost, to try and navigate such differences of opinion.
Well, you see, this illustrates how set we are in our own conceptions, in our own view of ourselves, until something shakes its foundation, and we unwillingly usually are compelled to admit that perhaps this rock solid perception of the world that I had, my understanding of what's right or wrong, is perhaps not as reliable as I thought.
Well, that leads to the easy follow-up question: what shook your foundations?
Well, it's been going on progressively throughout my life, I think. I don't think I can say what it was. It's just been life itself. The process of living has things changed, didn't they? All things change. Do you know, there's an old hymn that I learnt as a child at school. It starts off, "Abide with me," a very well-known hymn. They used to sing it at football matches. I wonder if they still do. Abide with me. And then a bit later on it goes, "O thou that changeth not, abide with me." It went through everything that changes, Life comes and goes. "O thou that changeth not." And one of the things I was taught at the School of Meditation that made a deep impression on me was when we were told that truth is what doesn't change. Well, even if you can just hold that in your mental, even without experiencing it, just hold it in your mind, then you will see immediately that everything else changes. It comes to pass. Here today and gone tomorrow. Everything. O thou that changeth not, abide with me. So what alone abides with us? through all the changing scenes of life, in sorrow and in joy. I forget the words exactly. There's something, probably the worship of my God and King shall heart and mind employ, something like that. Through all the changing scenes of life. Well, that's true enough, isn't it? The changing scenes of life. So what is it that does not change? This is the great thing. Well, what is it, dear? The stones under our feet change, don't they? I mean, the body, John Butler, nothing very permanent about him, is it? Especially before death, it's long past. So what is it that doesn't change? Well, certainly those of our listeners who are, well, most of our listeners, I suppose, are sort of more or less used to some form of meditation. What about this, which actually I like these days to call this in capital letters, in contrast to all the other words that are in small letters. This in capital letters. And what is this? I cannot say, can I? It's beyond description. And yet it's always here. Usually in these sort of discussions we start off by calling it silence. Silence. Extraordinary thing how silence is always present. In the noisiest, chaotic situation, silence, like the sun, is always there, even that is not always visible, hidden behind the clouds. We're not looking at it, we're buried, we're down in the world here, concerned with sorting out the world. And the sun's always up above. Well, this silence is rather like that, like spiritual sunshine, always present. And in meditation we begin to get a glimpse of it. We begin to recognize that it's reality. Silence. I've often used this as a sort of sequence, but I'll repeat it because it's a very useful way. Silence, stillness. Are they not the same thing? Because silence doesn't change, does it? And the deeper we go into silence, which by the way is perfectly possible, we can, as it were, go into it more and more silent, into the unchanging, into stillness, peace, presence, strangely enough, freedom, because it's not constructed, it's not conceptualized, is it? Purity. Maybe that's truth. Spirit. What is spirit if it isn't this? Truth. And when John Butler finally dies out completely, all this that you can see and perceive with your perception sort of breaks down and decays. What's left? This is the great question that I find so interesting now, because like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon, it becomes ever more obvious that John Butler dies out. And this remains. But what is the connection between this and John? Well, you You could all of you ask, all our listeners, you could ask yourself the same question. What is the connection between this silence, this infinite, indescribable, and the personality that's performing down here, this transitory person that we normally take for ourselves, the person. It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's dead simple, really. It's just, you can experience it, really. What can we rely on? What is real? Anything down here in this changeable world? Or is the whole thing just a performance? Interesting, that word, isn't it? Per meaning, well, I'm not sure what per means, but performance is obviously form, isn't it? Name and form. And this has no form, does it? Formless, nameless, formless, timeless, spaceless.
But nonetheless real.
Well, that's another word you could use for it, real. But does that mean that everything else is unreal? Is everything else just a great show? A wonderful, miraculous show? A dream? Well, is it? I think this is, we all must experience this for ourselves, and gradually let it reveal itself as it does. I don't think it's that helpful, actually, going around saying the world is unreal, because when you're in the world, it is real, isn't it? Totally real. To a child, its reality is real. And so it is for all of us in our different, through all the scenes of life.
When I spent some time at the Shantivanam Christian ashram in India, in the morning prayers, which is a mix of English and Sanskrit, in the liturgy, we repeated every morning, from the unreal to the real. What we see, feel, touch, in other words, come through our perceptions, of course we define as real, but we're flipping it, aren't we? Saying that's all fleeting, changing, insubstantial ultimately. And what is real is the numinous, or the formless, as you've just said, spaceless, timeless. How can we encounter that reality, John?
Well, this is a difficult one. See, some people will immediately dismiss it, you know. Yes, one can approach the subject in various ways. This little place where we live, Bakewell here, is surrounded by lovely hills, and it's very popular walking country. Many people come here and spend a day walking the hills. Now up there, it expands, doesn't it? Our normal life, me and my troubles, when once people get up on the hills, they usually become a little bit quieter. Some people just continue talking all the time. Other people usually, just when you look at a wider horizon, something usually quietens down a bit in our busy minds. And this is a way of approaching it. At least it opens up, there's something beyond this busy me, which lives pretty much, as I described, a cocoon. This identity, me, called John or Phil. Well, that's the first thing, to realize there's something bigger. Some people are moved by beauty without quite knowing how or why. They may find themselves in tears. Something moves them deeply. Yeah, there are many things like this. Music. Different things do different people, things to people, which somehow gives them a glimpse of another reality, which is a step in the right direction. Not many people can talk as confidently as I do about this, because I've had over 60 years of meditation. I've had a lot of practice at it. And anyway, I'm almost at the point where this reality is no longer real, and this is the only option, really. There's no choice. But yes, it takes practice, which, however, wherever we are, I think it's fairly safe to say it takes practice. I don't think anybody could question that the search for truth is a lifetime process. I don't think many people can get an instant answer straight away. Because this conditioning, this performance is so deeply ingrained, embedded in our sense of reality that you can't just step out of it just like that. It pulls us back.
I like the expression I've heard somewhere, it's better to live the question than find the answer, which is sort of a very convenient get out, but it's appealing because it's like calling the search off. Isn't this search for truth, shall we say, isn't it about the dissolution of the act of searching rather than actually grasping some truth? That's a good question, that. I've just thought of it.
It is a fact that this, if you come back to this, which is really now my favourite thing now, is this, you see. You can't actually grasp it, because what happens to the whatever it is that grasps, you see. As this comes into reality, what happens to this? You simply grow out of it. But it reminds me of, on a certain occasion in my life, many years ago, I was told by, anyway, he said, "Don't come too close to me unless you're prepared to be burnt." Well, I was burnt. I wouldn't use that phrase myself. I don't quite know why I said it then, just as a bit of illustration maybe. Because one of the features of this is that it is infinitely kind. It's totally unthreatening. Although to someone, and it doesn't push itself upon us, that's right. So there's no compulsion about it. It's total allowance, just like when the sun shines, you're perfectly, it doesn't it doesn't in any way impede your freedom to sit at home with the curtains drawn, does it? The sun is entirely benevolent. It's silences, isn't it? It's totally non-compulsive. It's here. But whatever goes on, we can shout and scream and ignore it as much as we like.
It has an echo for me, John, of St. Paul's famous verses from 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. And one of the characteristics of love, it does not insist on its own way.
Exactly, that's right.
Viewers will know, if they visited the website, that Spiritual Unfoldment is actually a charitable trust, with a proper trust with objects. And one of the objects is to develop discrimination between the natural and the unnatural. Not between the fake and the true, but between the natural and the unnatural. And I just want to arm wrestle with you a little bit over this. More than just the use of the word natural and unnatural, but what's underneath it or behind it. So what's natural to you, John?
Well, again, for much of my life, I rather divided the world between what I called nature, which was the earth, the plants, the trees, the sky, the weather. That, to my understanding, was nature. And almost everything of man was unnatural or artificial. All man-made wood, for example, was natural. Plastic, when it was invented, is unnatural, the product of man. Natural and unnatural. Natural or artificial. Man-made. When I first began to discover silence, that also was seemed to me to be natural. Well, as we've been talking about this, here's nature, isn't it? The grass outside, the weather, all that we call nature, both the natural and the unnatural world of man. Yes, this is now I'm on the right track. The natural and the unnatural. This is what you might call supernatural, isn't it? This is describable. This is the world really of duality, isn't it? And this is above it. This is the world of change, natural change, and both natural change and unnatural change. And this is thou that changeth not, abide with me. The supernatural, higher reality. And this is actually what in Christianity is called the Trinity, this law of three, that is the fundamental law of creation.
Bingo.
Bingo.
I've been trying to get to the bottom of this with you for ages, and that's the best and clearest exegesis of it. So can I be bold and suggest a slight rewording of the objects of the trust? This distinction between the natural and the unnatural, as you've just clearly demonstrated, are both changing down here, so to speak. It's discriminating between those that change and the supernatural that doesn't change. Is that fair enough? Kindergarten stuff.
It is super simple, isn't it, Phil? Why can't we just jump into it straight away? Why isn't it taught at primary school?
Indeed.
Why do we have 80 years in this world to struggle, to struggle at understanding what it's all about. Think back to our school days, can we jump from kindergarten to graduation? Or do we have to go through all the preliminary phases?
If we grew up, by an accident of birth in other cultures, the acceptance of the supernatural would be supernormal.
So is it just a matter of culture? I mean, what I've just explained, and you've responded so fully to it, it's simplicity itself, isn't it?